with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, welcome to our City Council City Council Business Meeting for September 19th, 2022. A few notes before we get started. Like I always say, we are all here in person, although Administrator Zelms is gone today, but we still do have staff and public joining virtually, so I'm still toggling back and forth between my screens, so just give me a second if I'm trying to catch up in that space. And also note that we do take breaks every 90 to 120 minutes, and we will keep you posted as we do those between items. So we start every meeting with our open comment period, and I do need to sign into Zoom, so I will do that in just a second. But this is an opportunity for anybody from the public who would like to speak on an item that will not be taking public testimony later in the agenda. And each person has up to 4 minutes to speak for a total of 20 minutes. Just a note that a couple meetings ago, we clarified our existing council rules, and one of our rules, to refresh everybody's memory, is that if you've spoken at the first meeting of the month, at the second meeting you're still provided an opportunity to speak. You have 2 minutes and you are moved to the end of the list, so we want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak who hasn't yet this month. And if there's time left at the end, so there are a couple people that have been signed up for both the first meeting and today, so we'll make sure to adjust the order based on that. So just a note for this meeting and for future meetings. And of course, because of the limited time, we always want to make sure that you're as concise as possible to allow for as many people to speak as who are interested. All right, so with that, I will start our list here in person, and I'm going to log into Zoom to make sure we don't have any, or if there's anybody who would like to speak online. But Casey McGregor, come on up.
Hello, Council and Mayor. My name is Casey McGregor. This is my first time speaking before you. I am a small business owner of a salon that you called non-essential, and you did this without apology. I mention this because I had to find a way to survive without any business income. Now you are proposing a 6.85% increase in property tax. 6.85 while we are in a recession. Then I ask myself, why the increase? Is it for safety and infrastructure? Not according to what was written in the Post Bulletin. You want to add more staff, a human resource position. No. When you encouraged businesses to stay closed, we had to figure it out. So I say no, figure it out. Increase travel and training. No. You encouraged lockout of our kids from school and told them to learn from Zoom. Now you can take your own advice and learn from Zoom. No more trips on the taxpayers. Zoom it is. Budgets for staff and elected officials. No, we are in a recession. How much staff is still working from home, by the way? Heating and cooling. The county put in a new furnace. Why did you not do the same? Because you want something bougie that the taxpayers cannot afford. This is like living in some kind of elite Martha's Vineyard dystopia right now, here in Rochester. Nothing mentioned in this increase of 6.85% goes to crime, drugs, or sex trafficking. Where's the important stuff? Nothing mentioned on what people on fixed incomes do. What happens to seniors? Nothing mentioned on young adults. How will they ever be able to afford a home here in Rochester? Or are they supposed to just be quiet and enjoy densification? Groceries are up 8.5% to 9.5%. The increase is going to go up 10 to 11 per the USDA. Gas prices are up. Home heat will be up this winter. What do you want the rest of Rochester living across the street at the warming center? Are you recession deniers? Why is the government refusing to accept any inconvenience while the people who elect you, that you serve, go without? Do you hear how hard it is for families right now? Or do you live in your own echo chamber and ignore the people you are meant to serve? Thank you for your time And please vote no on the increase of 6.85%.
Listen to me, everyone. We are going to be respectful. We are going to invite and welcome different perspectives, but we are not going to be disruptive in this room, okay? I am totally fine with people speaking however they need to and sharing their concerns with us. I am not fine with causing a scene. All right? Thank you. All right, I welcome Diana Freeman up.
Diana Freeman, Northwest Rochester, and I don't normally come because I get angry. So I'm going to try to keep my cool here tonight. Several issues. This morning at 10:34 a.m. I received an email here from this gal, Jenna Bowman. She's the Strategic Communications and Engagement Director regarding Soldiers Field and Silver Lake. And at 3:30 today, she tells us in this that there's a meeting. That gives us about 4 hours notice. That's not right. We can't have that. She should have sent this out a week ago, so if those that want to attend could have taken off from work or whatever. So in the future, I like city people that send out emails to send them at least a week in advance so we have time to prepare and attend meetings. It's very important to us. So I think you should fix the pools in Rochester, but I want you to stop the tax and spend agenda. I've told people this over and over again. Nothing changes. Soldiers Field and Silver Lake, leave them alone. Don't touch them. There's nothing wrong with them. We don't need to be spending millions of dollars in a recession, just like Casey said. Weeds, the weeds at Silver Lake. I don't know how many times I've complained about this. The weeds are so high, they bring mice, rats, snakes. There's filthy down there at the park. You can't even go down there. And those of us like myself with asthma and allergies, millions of people in the U.S. cannot be around that. And I was told today that the weeds make the water clean. The water's not clean, it's filthy. It's full of not dog poop, it's full of goose poop. So I think that we need to do something about those weeds. I don't have weeds in my yard or I'll get a fine from you people. So I expect that you take care of your parks too. Stop that spending tax. The people can't afford it anymore. This is a medical city, asthma and allergies again with the weeds. Just remember that. And please don't schedule meetings during the working day at the last minute so that we can't attend. I know that's what the purpose is. I want you to stop hiring these expensive consultants. I see you've hired Hoisington Keegler Group and Asakura Robinson or whatever. I don't know how much money those people get, probably hundreds of thousands, who knows. But these consultants, you guys can make your own decisions without having consultants. Just get bids. It's ridiculous. Well, that's our money. Don't spend our money without talking to us first. Let us have a voice. Let us have a vote. You represent us. We elected you. You represent us. So please listen to us. And then lastly, the affordable housing that you talk about all the time, it's not affordable. People living in these 1 and 2 bedroom brand new apartments are paying more per month than I pay for my 4-bedroom home on my mortgage. And it's ridiculous. And, I just lost my husband 5 months ago. I've also lost 3 other family members. So it's been a rough year for me. But I'll tell you something. It's hard to live on 1 income instead of 2. So, these people that call affordable housing affordable, it's not affordable. And I'll tell you this, the studies show, ask yourself which party, the left or the right, lives more in affordable housing or rental units. It's the left. It's all about votes. That's why all over the U.S., they're building these rental units. It's all about politics. It's not about affordability.
You have about 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody joining virtually who would like to speak?
Can I say something?
No, not while you're not signed up.
Oh.
Okay. You are invited to if we have time left if you haven't signed up.
Oh, can I sign up?
I can add your name to the list.
What?
What is your name?
Gina.
All right. I have added your name to the list, but we have several other speakers ahead of you. Is there anyone online who would like to speak? Use the raise hand function or press *9. Okay, seeing no one, we'll continue on. Tom DeBoer.
Council President Carlson, council members, Mayor Norton, city staff, appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight. I was at your meeting this afternoon regarding the changes at Soldiers Field. I had these prepared. Obviously, I couldn't present there, so I wanted to offer them to you why some of these things are still in your mind. Basically, this is about some of the decisions you're going to have to make soon about the short-term modifications to Soldiers Field. First of all, at this time, staff have not presented optional locations within the city which would provide for a larger aquatic park with room for future expansion. Very important. I served here in Rochester through my professional career as chief engineer at AMPI Dairy and Mayo Clinic. We never went to a board to request money unless we brought them 3 options. Pure and simple. You got to look at options. 2 potential locations for the aquatic park would be Silver Lake or Graham Park. The Graham Park area could be a joint venture with Olmsted County. It may also allow for construction of a year-round use aquatic center. Residents of Olmsted County will use this, so if we can share some of those costs with those people, I think that'd be great. The decision to take land from holes 1, 3, 4, 5, and 9 to allow for aquatic additions to Soldiers Field should not be made until the costs of the above modifications to the course have been determined. Why not? Given the significant costs expected, those modifications, those funds may be better spent on an enhanced aquatic center at another location. No matter what changes are made to the north 1/3 of Soldiers Field, much additional parking will need to be added, as many days of the week the parking lot is nearly full on afternoons. My wife and I are both golfers. So far this year I have 102 rounds in. About 70% of my rounds are down there, so I can give a pretty good determination of what happens to that parking lot. You're going to have a bigger parking lot. Again, instead of spending money on a parking lot there, maybe use those funds at an enhanced aquatic center. Another point that came up to me at the park board meeting back in June when we had a public presentation, I know there's a big need for pickleball courts. One of the things that dawned on my mind, and it came up today too, about multiple use for city facilities. Take a look at maybe procuring some of the land just to the east of the parking lot at Northern Hills Golf Course. You've got a beautiful new clubhouse there. There's a restaurant in there. There's restroom facilities. It might be beneficial to spend some money out there and put it out there. The other big thing about having it out there, when people go out there, there's a lot of retail in that area. You got Home Depot, you got Target, you got Walmart, you got Sam's Club. It gives you a joint need to go out there. You can go do your sporting thing and take care of some other business. Those are the end of my comments for tonight. I will give you a handout on all these.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you.
All right, moving on, is there anyone joining virtually who would like to speak? Use the raise hand function or press *9. Seeing no one, we'll move on to those who are joining in person. Thelma De Silva, come on up.
I also come to these meetings angry. But tonight, I changed my mood because I saw our RPD over here. Great folks. Somebody's doing their job in this town, and that's the RPD. Thank you very much, Chief, Captain, and all of your men and women. What a great job you're doing. Thank you. Thank you very much. City Council, you're voting yourselves into irrelevance and alienation. Tonight, the Rochester taxpayer is going to take it in the chin again. And you will be the ones delivering the knockout punch. Yes, at the end of the day, you will raise our taxes by an exorbitant amount. Again. Your vote to confiscate more of our money is not only predictable, but inevitable and anticlimactic. You have already committed to spending that money. My favorite line is the travel and training for staff, junkets on the taxpayer dime. You're going to spend a fortune of our money on travel, lodging, and food at a time when professional training can be had in abundance online. This tax increase will have a minimal effect. Yes. I wish I was that popular. This tax increase will have a minimal effect, if any, on you. You've seen to it yourselves. Before the pandemic hit, you voted to increase your city council pay and the mayor's by 80%, then double down on your collective sense of entitlement by increasing it another 15 to 20%. At a time when ordinary people in Rochester were struggling with unemployment and business closures. We had somebody just talk about that right now. We're doing with less while you're doing with more. Congratulations. You have placed yourselves above the consequences of your shameful and irresponsible official actions. Your bank account is padded with our money already. Now you're going to confiscate more. Shame on you. You will be raising taxes on your neighbors. You know, the people to whom you say good morning on your way to your other paying job or jobs. Some of you have multiple ones. The people whom you see walking their dog or mowing their lawn or picking up mail from the mailbox in the evening. But also the people who neither know nor care that you're supposed to represent their interests here. Kim Norton, I note with ongoing disappointment, but absolutely no surprise, your continued refusal to disclose who paid for your travel, lodging, and meals during your lobbying trip to Baltimore and our nation's capital. You deleted the portion of your Facebook post where you delineated your lobbying activities there, once I and others asked questions about the purpose of your visit to that liberal urban hellhole. Whose interests were you fronting in D.C., Kim? Your original campaign for mayor was predicated on transparency. I knew you were lying then. What else are you lying about as you campaign for a second term?
Please don't. All right. Jason Tupper.
Good evening. This is my second time speaking. My first time kind of saw red because I've never done it before. Again, I'm a 45-year resident of Rochester, Minnesota in Elton Hills. You don't represent anything, again, that Elton Hills has to offer. Kim Norton, I challenge you to a public discourse on COVID. I have all the stuff on my phone. I can't read through it all. So we have roughly 195, 198 COVID deaths in Olmsted County as a whole, as of the last time I spoke. That's out of 49,000 positive tests. Mind you, that's a 97% false positive rate on those tests per the inventor of the test. So we've carried on this lie for 2 years, and I don't know if we have to pull your surety bonds. I don't know if we have to sue you or criminally, civilly. I don't know what to do. But you don't represent us any longer. None of you do. And you've all done the same thing. You've all perpetuated a lie for 2 years. You've ruined 7,700 jobs, not to mention people that have had to close businesses. And you've ruined families. You've brought our kids down to a 20-year low in learning. And you two have training in small adult or small child education, and you know that most of their learning comes from facial expressions. They're learning to enunciate, right? How is a deaf person, Kim, supposed to do that? I have a deaf nephew, not to mention that he's developmentally and physically delayed, you know. Good thing he doesn't know that you guys are full of lies. So I don't know what we're going to do. I'm trying to, again, this goes back to my dad, Kim. You know my dad. Your shot killed my dad. Your shot killed my dad. Know that. That's crimes against humanity. Nuremberg. 75 years last month.
All right, is there anyone joining virtually who would like to speak? Use the raise hand function or press *9. Seeing no one, Gina, come on up and please introduce yourself. No. Gina hasn't spoken before.
No. Okay. Well, my name is Gina. I am from the Twin Cities metro area. I am a former police officer, okay? I was visiting your city. Actually, I'm still visiting your city. And as a police officer, these guys probably can tell you the same thing, but basically, even if they protect the visitors. Visitors are part of the community because they bring in money, revenue to the city. So I'm a visitor. I'm actually staying here for a little while. And I was taking a walk and I noticed something very disturbing in the windows of your public library. I don't know if it's city owned. I'm assuming it is. I was actually back here. I was here in January as well, and I seen something also disturbing. And I think I'll save that for maybe another time, and maybe I'll just privately send a email to you. Um, what I found disturbing were there these neon signs in the children's section of the library. Now, people in law enforcement, I actually have a background in school resource officer as well. So I worked with children for quite a while. I took part in the school leadership school leadership program through the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. So I'm very well aware of certain things. These symbols that are neon signs inside of your library in the children's section are associated with pedophilia. It's very disturbing to me as a grandmother and as a mother to see something like this and to see that I would think that somebody would have brought this to you or told you or noticed this at some point in time, and I'm really surprised that they haven't. I probably will follow up on this because I find it so disturbing that they're bright neon signs, and I thought, well, what is, maybe they don't know. Maybe you don't know. Look it up. Google it. These signs are very specific for grooming, child grooming, pedophilia. What they're calling pedophilia now is what is it?
Minor attracted person.
Minor attracted persons. That's not. It's not okay. And I am telling you, I'm clearly biracial, and in my communities, this is not acceptable. This would have been dealt with immediately. This is very disturbing, and I don't know that I have a pretty large voice in my area, and I don't think I'm going to stop saying something about what I've seen until I know that it's being addressed and looked into. I almost called the police to say, have you guys looked into this? Do you guys know this? Are you guys aware of this? This is not okay. It's not okay in anybody's community. And you guys really, I'm sorry if you guys weren't aware of it, but that hey, you guys got to take care of it. It's disturbing. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thanks. All right, is there anyone joining online who would like to speak? Star 9 or raise hand function? Seeing no one, we have 3 minutes left, or 2 minutes left of public testimony, and we have Wes and Gail left, so you are welcome to use the time how you would like, but you have up to 2 minutes. Wes, you're first.
Okay, start talking now. I don't know what Mayor Norton's looking at up there that's so interesting, because human beings of this community are speaking on this microphone right here. But there's something up there that's really fascinating to the mayor. So I hope she keeps looking at that. You had money for this. It was almost a year that this monstrosity was on the arts building. Fine, do it. Live it. Be yourself. I see omen in that. Anyway, I'm going to move right along. Let's have a moment of silence for Martha's Vineyard. Oh, Martha's Vineyard, how they suffered for 3 days with their onslaught of filthy, unwashed humanity.
rolling up on their shores. When I was on Martha's Vineyard the last time, I kind of got hit in a bicycle accident, but I had a good time because they were mafiosos and they controlled the restaurant industry there. They were good guys. And we left laughing and having a good time because we understood the grift of Martha's Vineyard. The people who wanted to put some affordable housing government projects on the Blue Dog Democrat area known as Pill Hill in this community ran into a couple of lawsuits when they wanted to build some government projects up there, right? There were no fewer than 2 lawsuits against the people who were planning on changing their community. Just like Martha's Vineyard, they said no. Those are the people who have abolish ICE signs in their yards. All are welcome here. In this house we believe, blah, blah, blah. Tautologies and simplistic euphemisms. Those are the people who have all these signs that say, all are welcome, and then when you wanted to have a community in there that was less than perfect people, they had 2 lawsuits up there. I also want to address, maybe there's not enough time, but
10
tonight's
seconds
meeting
left.
didn't appear, I'll hand this out, but tonight's meeting was not on the website. I hope we can address that in a future talk.
Thank you, Mr. Lund. All right, that concludes our public comment period. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your concerns.
Craig.
And with that, we will officially call the meeting to order, and Clerk Giesler, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keen.
Here.
Councilmember Bransford.
Here.
Councilmember Campion.
Here.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Present.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Council President Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Norton.
Present. All right, thank you, Clerk. We will move on to our administrator's report, and it's Deputy Administrator Parrish speaking tonight.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, Council President, I'll be really brief. Just one thing, and you can advance to the slide, Kimberly. Just a debrief from our study session. I didn't have the opportunity to go through the study session calendar. Want to note a couple of important updates there. One, fortunate for you all, you have no study session next week, so enjoy that time and have an opportunity to take a little bit of a break. But then coming up on the 3rd, we have the DMC work plan and budget, as well as an update from Senator Nelson. I want to also draw your attention on the 10th. We have the City Council learning session, which will be again facilitated by Bethany von Steinberg. It'll be focused on strengths. We'll be doing that at the PWTOC, so we'll try to get you a tour of that building as well. But do plan for a bit of an extended evening that night, and we'll be bringing in dinner there. UDC neighborhood feedback, so that is now calendared for the 24th. So you'll have the opportunity to chat through that at that meeting. We had to do some rearranging on the agenda, so one thing you will note is that the discussion of the Council Rules of Procedure CIA has been bumped. I think we're going to try to catch that toward the end of the year, turn of the year, but not scheduled at this point. And then you'll note, even getting out a little bit further, but I know it's been talked about, on the 28th of November, we have the Urban Forestry Master Plan update for you to take in. So just wanted you to be aware of some of those changes. It's a little bit different than maybe what you've been seeing in previous meetings. With that, I'd like to flip over to the next slide and really just give a thanks to our team. Obviously you can see we engage with the public. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of hard work happening within our team and the community. And we're just really proud of our employee engagement results. As you'll see, we actually increased our percentage by 9%. And so if you think about our overall response rate for an employee engagement survey being upwards of 81%, we're getting great feedback. Now it's our job to really turn that around and do something with it. But definitely excited, and thank everybody who participated in that. Gretchen Bill, our organizational development strategist, did amazing work, as well as being supported by a number of folks. But this is going to be really helpful. A lot of our KPIs and our action plan are come out of this survey. Important to get a really strong sense of our team's health and being intentional about how we support them. Then lastly, just want to point out a lot of fun events in the fall. I know if you were in downtown on Saturday, there was dogs, there was digging at Discovery Walk, lots of great things going on. But we also have a good activation of the Chateau Theater. So you all, have been supporting Threshold in that work. there is a free event. Latino Fest is coming on October 1st, 12 to 4. There's a lot of family activities. There's also some music and drink. It'll kind of be spreading out into the plaza. So definitely take that in and really enjoy some of the great events that we have this fall in the downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Most of the things I would announce this week are things some of you have been at, and certainly the staff has been at. It has been very busy. This past weekend was Welcome Week, and the city and county both participated in that event, which is about being welcoming to new movements, and particularly immigrants and others in our community. That was a lovely event out at MLK Park. Dogs Downtown was mentioned. I didn't hear. I heard they were expecting 10,000 dogs and their people. I don't know how many they actually had, but it was a wonderful turnout. There was the DMC annual meeting and the street grants announcement since our last meeting, so lots of activity going on there. And I was able to read a proclamation for direct support professionals. I think many of us are keenly aware of the shortage of direct care professionals for some of our most needy in this community. And so, I take the opportunity every year since I've been mayor to read a proclamation on their behalf. But I think this past year has been especially difficult not to read the proclamation in honor of them. I want to do that, but that there are less and less of them available in this community for people in need. And it's just really concerning, but that was, they had an online event this year and I participated that way. Also, there have been some really fun things going on. I've had an opportunity to attend some, and other city council members too, Dakota Elementary, or Dakota Middle School, Harriet Bishop Elementary, and Longfellow have all had wonderful activities this week celebrating new schools and outstanding achievements. So that's been kind of fun. Also, just quickly, I attended the KSMQ ribbon cutting. KSMQ is a regional public television station. Our town is one of the programs that's specific to Rochester, and they just opened a brand new office in downtown Austin, Minnesota, which is really lovely. So I went there for that. And then the National League of Cities is offering us some potential support, and some of our partners in the community attended an event to see if we can participate in some programming, perhaps, or some collaboration and partnerships on entrepreneurship in this community. So we originally went talking about informal entrepreneurs, but I think there are many categories you can get some support for. But one that the career mentioned that is really important has to do with childcare and the need for more childcare in the community. And I know Council President Carlson has talked about that a number of times, and there is a tract for that. So I know they're interested in that. So I may be reaching out to some of you to see if you want to help work in this collaborative on one of these 2 or 3 entrepreneur tracks that we could participate in. And lastly, I will just say, kind of on a city but also a personal note, we took a Zumden in as an intern for our city. She was with us for 5.5 months, and she left today at 2:00. So she has resided in my home for 5.5 months. And so it's kind of a sad day. I suppose on one hand, it'll give me a little more freedom in my home. I had to behave for 5.5 months. It's really hard. And so, but on the other hand, she offered a lot to this community through the Energy Commission and did research for our city environmental and energy efforts. So I was sad to see her go, and I understand I have a letter at home to read when I get there from her. So I look forward to reading that. But looking forward to the meeting this evening, and I want to thank you guys too for many of the events I go to, you are at as well, and I know the community really appreciates all the involvement from the City Council.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, moving on to approving the order of the agenda. There are a couple changes this week I want to make sure everybody's aware of. First of all, staff have removed item F8 and have added a temporary construction easement in support of F15. Are we handing that around, or did we already? Mr. Spindler, Craig?
Your Honors, that was distributed previously, and a hard copy is available for the public.
All right, so I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that addition, and that will be incorporated into the motion, both of those changes.
I'll move approval with including those 2 exceptions.
Okay, Go ahead,
Second.
thank you. Yes, Councilmember Keen, any discussion?
Yeah, I think you, Council President Carlson, you did explain them correctly, so there's no confusion that there are two separate changes, and I think you described them well. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, we have a few items pulled, so let me go ahead and run through those, and then if there's anything else, please add. Councilmember Dennis has pulled item F5. Councilmember Palmer has pulled F10. Councilmember Dennis has pulled F11. Anything else?
I would, just because I haven't thoroughly gone through the changes in F15, I would, that's the one added, correct?
Just the document was added, the legal document was added.
Yes, I think I would like just to have a moment to look at that before approving that. So
Sure.
I would, I don't know if I should
Pull it.
that was sent during.
Mr. Senator Craig, would you prefer that we take a minute to ensure she's comfortable or pull it?
Just one moment, please.
Yep.
Anybody staying around just for that?
No preference. It's fine to just pull it and
Yeah, so I'll pull it so I have time to read it during our quick break sometime.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the motion's a little complicated, so bear with me. Anything else? All right, so I'd invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through 4, 6 and 7, 9, 12 through 14.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Campion, any discussion?
Nope.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. So F5, 10, 11, and 15 will move to reports and recommendations after our budget discussion. All right. Moving on to our public hearings, we do have a couple of items today. I always go through the process that we use for those public hearings. So staff provides an introduction to the item before the applicant or representative of the applicant can present for up to 10 minutes. We then open the public hearing. Public comment is allowed. Each person has up to 5 minutes before closing the public hearing. The applicant has a chance to respond for up to 5 minutes. And then we have a chance for council to ask any clarifying questions of the applicant or staff before motion, discussion, vote. So our first item is the final plat, number CD 2022-026 plat, to be known as the Weber Edition. And I believe we have Allison Sosa here. Bless you. Ms. Sosa, are you available and ready to go?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
She's very quiet.
You're very quiet.
How about now?
Still very quiet, a little bit louder, but still very quiet. Is it a problem on our end, team?
The fact I can hear it all suggests it is.
Can you try again, Ms. Sosa?
Sure. Good evening.
That's better.
I mean,
We can.
we can hear you. It's still quiet, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll speak loud.
Oh, you're good now. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Good evening, President Carlson, Mayor Norton, members of the City Council. I am Allison Sosa with the Community Development Department, and I will be presenting this application to you this evening. The application is for the Weber Edition Final Plat. It is a request to consolidate 3 parcels into 2 lots. This application will facilitate a 6-story multifamily development, and no new right-of-way is dedicated with this final plat. The community development team is recommending approval with 3 conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks so much, Ms. Sosa. Would the applicant or representative of the applicant like to speak on this item? Use the raise hand function or press *9 if you're joining virtually. There you go. Mr. Stencil, go ahead. You have 10 minutes. I can't hear you yet. Sometimes we need to switch you over to a speaker. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No
I
problem.
was struggling with technology there. But thank you all very much tonight for considering the replat application we're bringing forward here. We're working with staff on a potential project for the site. Very excited about it. Just wanted to let you know I'm on and available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stencil. We'll get back to you if we do. With that, we'll open the public hearing and invite anybody who would like to speak. I don't have anybody previously signed up, so if there's someone joining virtually, use the raise hand function or press *9. Otherwise, if you're in the room and would like to speak on this item, please do step up. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and invite any questions from my colleagues to staff or Mr. Stencil. Mr. Keene.
Thank you. Yes, I just have one question or one for Mr. Stenzel. I noted the RPU input was that the drawing in the packet showed a 5-foot utility easement that should be 10-foot. I just want to clarify or validate that you're good with the 10-foot easement there.
Yes, yeah, we are okay with that. We're just kind of working through that with RPU to help best situate. You know, if it's up to 10, we are fine with that, but I believe we're in conversations with RPU on potentially adjusting it, but obviously we are okay with the 10 feet.
And again, there was also a reference in there to if there's a public water main, that there would have to be room for that. Again, I'm uncomfortable approving all these when these things aren't resolved, but I'm just looking for you to commit that you're going to work through them with the staff and we're not going to have trouble.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we've been working with staff for a few months on this project, and we don't foresee any issues that we have problems with. And I think staff would echo that. You know, we've been putting our best foot forward, and we'll continue to do so until everyone's you know, satisfied with all the easements and all other requirements for the property.
Very good, thank you. And then, Ms. Sosa, are we okay procedurally approving the final plat without having these things resolved, or you're comfortable with it?
I am comfortable with it.
All right, thank you.
All right. With that, I'll invite a motion.
Move approval 3 conditions.
Second, Bransford.
All right, Councilmember Campion, you have the floor.
Nothing to add.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Stencil. Ms. Sosa?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well. Moving on to the 2022 Transit Program of Projects, Federal Transit Administration. Ms. Zhang, are you available to introduce the item?
Yes, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hey, good evening. President Carlson, Mayor Norton, council members, this is Iya Shang. I'm the Transit and Parking Systems Manager for Rochester Public Transit and Public Works. And this is a hearing for the Federal Transit Program of Projects. This is done annually. This hearing is to basically for the federal funds that we receive. It does not include the discretionary federal grants that we have been awarded. It is the federal grants that are apportioned to the city. And so the programs that you see here are consistent with the city's capital improvement program and the state's transportation improvement program. So with that, I will turn it back over for any questions, comments.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang. We will go ahead and open the public hearing and then get back to you if there are questions later on. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? If you're joining virtually, raise hand function or press *9. Last call, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions for Ms. Zhang?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, Campion, you have the floor.
No questions.
Or comments?
No comments.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, thanks, Ms. Zhang. That is it with our public hearing, so we're moving on to one of our major items this evening, and that is the budget, and I will turn it over to Deputy Administrator Aaron Parrish. Go ahead.
All right, 1 minute, Your Honor, while I get the presentation up.
So while he's preparing that, I'll just read the actual title of the item. So the The item is for the 2023 preliminary tax levy and supplemental budget. And just to remind all my colleagues, we're looking at adopting a resolution certifying the 2023 preliminary tax levy of $92,772,574.
All right, Mayor, President, members of the council, again, you've spent an amazing amount of time walking through this budget starting in April. And in fact, this is the second year of a 2-year budget. So really this is considered our supplemental budget request. But the important activity this evening really is to move into the adoption phase of the budget and have the council consider setting your preliminary levy. This important point to note here, this is setting the preliminary levy. It's the levy that you can do at the maximum level, but you can't go over it, but you can reconsider that in the future. After the previous work sessions on this, we've tried to assimilate your feedback, tried to reflect a budget that you can be proud of, and are recommending again to you to certify a 2023 preliminary tax levy of $92.7 million. That also includes previously approved park referendum dollars of $2 million, establishes the preliminary 2023 budget of over $588 million, of which the property tax is about 15% of that, and then sets the public hearing. So this really is the opportunity then. This sets the basis for the notices that go out to the public. They'll receive those. They have the opportunity to come and provide you feedback on their cost of government on December 5th, and then you can consider that there. Just again, overall the levy is over $92 million, total budget $588. We're looking at 2.5% rate increases in electric, 5% for water, no parking ramp or transit rate increases, and again a significant CIP that you have over $202 million, and all this is inclusive of the RPU budgets. Again, just over 15% of this is levy. We have a significant amount of charges for service. If you think of utility billing, etc., as a core part of this budget, as well as a number of intergovernmental sources of revenues and licenses and permits. When we talk specifically about the tax levy, the core of the tax levy really is focused on, in the general fund, focused on public safety. 57% of our tax levy in the general fund goes to predominantly police and fire, and then other core areas in general government and public works. We also have allocations of the levy in the library as well as parks areas. I'm not going to go deep on the CIP, but it's again significant at $202 million. This is really where I want to spend just a moment. Again, trying to get to a budget the council can be proud of. One thing of note is that as we got the updated pilot information for RPU, that actually was $426,000 more than we projected. So after we go through all the different alignments in the budget, we talk about using some of the contingency for community funding and the HR position. I'll talk a minute about what's not included here. And then following up on the council's conversation on training and travel, we did add $100,000 across the board, not specifically for the council, but in a proportionate way across the board to get us closer to pre-pandemic levels of travel and training. So again, we need about $200,000 to get us to pre-pandemic levels. This sort of walks us closer to those numbers. And then developing a strategy for the downtown building energy transition system. We thought we heard the council say they wanted to invest some of the ARPA dollars, in which we more commonly refer to those as the holistic budget stability dollars. In that project, we have about $7.7 million of those dollars unallocated. And this would use $7 million. You'll note one of the items also on your agenda this evening, though, has $500,000 of those same dollars going for the airport service grant that you'll be considering in a moment here. But this provides the option to then lean into. Now, this is, we would plan to structure the debt in a way that allows you to get to the 6.85% levy. However, there would be a limited amount that we'd also need to levy in the 2024 budget. So this doesn't fully socialize that levy increase cost, but it makes significant progress and effort on that. And you'll be talking more about that project. Again, we have it budgeted as a $15.5 million project, but we're in the bidding phase, and we're just getting the first bids back on that now. So we're still trying to understand a few things there. So with that, what wasn't included at this point is the community funding. The city administrators recommended community funding included here, not the additional funding that was included in the outside agency committee review. We don't have anything for reduced entry fees for pool. nor did we do anything in the park garbage service space. So with that, I think I'll defer back to the council. I'll leave this slide up just as sort of your reference point. We have included sort of benchmarks on the impact of levy for some of these smaller decisions, but overall, we're requesting consideration and adoption of the resolution included within your packet on page 296. With that, happy to stand for a question.
Thank you. Councilmember Campion.
296. Just want to make sure it's the same. Okay. Sorry about that. So I'll get us started. I would move to adopt the resolution certifying the 2023 preliminary tax levy of $92,772,574 and including items 1, 2, and 3 under the requested action on page 233 of our packet.
Second.
You have the floor.
It's a long process, but I also think it's important that we are articulate for the community. There's a little bit of mischaracterization during public comment about what exactly the step tonight represents. Tonight we're setting the maximum levy and starting to move toward the process of finalizing the dollar amount we will levy in 2023. So it's there was some characterization as though tonight was the final phase, and as with many things in the government, the final phase has phases, and this is phase 1 of the final phase, and we've got a little bit longer to go. Just important to kind of keep track as we go through that. In terms of the budget itself, it is, I think the process is starting to work from my observation. The process of doing 2-year budgets, like that's starting to pay dividends already. I think, you know, as we see like minor modifications, we should expect that, but this doesn't seem, I mean, we should put up an image of that, but you know, this is relatively in the ballpark of, I think, where we thought we would be heading into 2023. So, you know, important for me to stick behind the idea that we want to get strategic and get on a 2-year cadence. Part of that is taking, you know, some minimal amendments into the next year to make sure we stay on track. But other than that, I just want to thank the staff for the work. I disagree with the connotations that were associated earlier tonight. I think we've done our level best to keep things as close as we could to level. And to some degree, again, the 6.85 is pre-factoring in growth that's happened. So there's a lot to still come here. Shouldn't read into this percentage. All the normal disclaimers still apply. So look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues as they see additional things that need to get shaped up before we do the final budget.
Thank you, Mr. Campion. Mayor Norton, go ahead.
Thank you. And Councilmember Campion covered a little bit of the questioning that I really had here. So 2 things come to mind, and I'm reaching back into my history serving on the school board, and we were very careful then at this point to actually be generous in our levy so that we could go down and we weren't in trouble by not having something come up last minute. And we are not doing that today. And I have to just tell you, I'm a little nervous. I would have probably preferred we go with what they said at the last meeting, which was hitting that 8% and then coming down. And just having the 8% as the maximum, not as what we were actually going to do, to be clear about that. And that was the philosophy that the school district has used for many, many years, and I think it served them well. And I hope this will be fine. I'm going to anticipate that it will be. But starting low, if we find something really does box us in just a tiny bit here. So I just wanted to say that. And the other piece I wanted to say, and this may be something, Administrator Parrish, that I don't know how you're going to, if you could answer it yet, maybe that's my point. But again, with the conversations that happened earlier in the comments about the 6.85 levy, that's the language that was used. But there's also a belief that that's a 6.85% in their taxes. And so could you maybe outline for us the difference between the amount we have, the levy, and what that actually means for an individual, factoring in growth and anything else, if we have that, at least some discussion about that now?
Yeah, Your Honor, I'm certainly happy to respond to that. You know, Dale Martinson, our finance director, is also on the line if I need a lifeline here. But, you know, this is always a complicated time of the year because we don't have the full valuation data at this point. There's always a few things that come in. And so generally speaking, if we're levying 6.85%, it will not translate, you know, percent to percent for people's property tax bills. However, there can be shifting of valuation amongst property classes from commercial to residential, and if commercial is outpacing residential, then there will be a reduction of the burden to the homeowner and vice versa. And so, as we know, we're in a very dynamic real estate environment right now, and so there could be a shift to residential here. So we're trying to understand that. So those are the two anchoring pieces is, you know, if it's average value home and you're relatively modest, generally speaking, you know, it would not necessarily be that because we also have growth. And so we are factoring growth in, but, you know, we'll just have to see where that comes. We have not yet gotten all those numbers and data. There's a bit of a delay at the state and then county side of that. So we hope to have that information for the budget hearing in December.
Thank you.
Councilmember Keen.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to support this resolution tonight. I commend the staff for working with us to drive towards this 6.85 number we were communicating through the thing. I'm sad that when you get to these points and you're closing out the budget and you have these discussions on travel or you have a discussion on community service, it almost makes it think that those are the things driving the budget, and they're such small parts of our budget. I think we should up here take more responsibility for this budget when we do things like change our fee structures to encourage affordable housing. When we do things like approve IT spending for improved police or new equipment for that. These are the kind of decisions we make in January and in June and then again in August that drive these budgets. And again, I take responsibility for that. I think we are being responsible, but I am worried too because of what Mr. Parrish just talked about. There's a 15% increase in property value in Olmsted County, and we don't know what that split's going to be like across residential and commercial. It can be kind of scary, so we'll have to brace for the coming months. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmer.
A couple things to remember is one of them, due to COVID, we held our levy at zero, and we're still paying for that. And I don't think we quite understood the ramifications down the road on that. The other thing that we have to remember is that the state of Minnesota with LGA has been horrendous for the city of Rochester, and the amount of money that we don't get because of that. We had a pretty good tax thing coming to Rochester, a hold harmless or a little bit extra. And the state did not do their job and did not come up with a tax bill for us. So I think, you know, we have to remember that too, that we're sitting here the closest to the people and we're the ones that provide police and fire and roads. And it makes it tough when we don't get help from our friends in the state. So I just want that to be remembered. I'm going to hit the valuation. That is 6.85%, but that doesn't mean your house is going to go up that much. And your house increase in value, which is a good thing for everybody, and you should be happy that your house increases in value. You could be like other cities in Minnesota, their house value goes down, and that's not a good thing either. So those are just my few words to say, and I will support this as I pledged before, and do it with a smile.
And of course, inflation affects city projects as well. So, Councilmember Bransford.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to support this as well, with a however, and I'm not going to do anything, so everybody just chill. I do think that the two library positions are unneeded, but at this point it's so late in the game, I'm not going to really ask that those be put back on the shelf and frozen. I'm looking at the number of FTEs and the number of visits to the library. And really asking for 2 more FTEs just doesn't seem like it's needed. So, okay, so be it. I'll say yes to this, but I really do think that those two positions is too many for the library. So, thanks.
Mr. Bransford. Any final discussion? Councilmember Dennis, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I haven't really, we're going to try to be more to the point, but I understand that yes, we can go down. So if we don't if we're able to do some tweaking, so it's always good to have that cushion so we can negotiate a little bit. Things. But I feel with future budgets, and I had a couple questions, and they are a little bit specific, and so I know it's not. I don't know a place for this, but the couple things is we don't know the future of some programs. So I would like to not cut funding for things like the Youth Commission, which is still in the planning stages of what's happening. And then training wasn't, I heard it was spoken about at the open comment here, but training has been drastically cut since COVID. And, I don't have all the numbers. I mean, I have them all right here. I just don't have them right for me. It was like 72,000 down to, was it 34,000? And it inhibits people from having the opportunity to go to lobby, to network, to really find different ways of finding funding, and of course building camaraderie. I've heard people in the community say that the council's not quite functioning the way it should, and I attribute that tremendously to the lack of time spent together. And so having more training, more connections would make better policymakers, obviously more engaged and informed policymakers, which is really important when you're trying to wrap your mind around some of these huge things happening in our city, but also working better together. So I would like to maybe just ask the question: if this is a place where can we tweak it, or is this something that for a later? Because I would like to have, and I mentioned this before, having it go back to pre-COVID states of for training. Is this who do I ask? Is this somewhere where we can do that, Mr. Parrish?
Yeah, so Mayor, President, members of the council, Councilmember Dennis, you really have two options. One is you could make an amendment to, add money into the budget for training to bring it back to pre-pandemic levels or something to that effect, or whatever specific amount you think is appropriate. And then you could do a corresponding increase in the levy if you wanted to do that. And just going back here, the $100,000 is 0.12%, so it would be another 0.12% if you wanted to double that, just as a reference point. Or you could save that for the final budget discussion and just try to reallocate and reprioritize other funding. I think, remember, this is a budget. This is your most important policy exercise, but the reality is things can come up. We do have a contingency built into this budget. So, for example, if the council re-envisioned the way they are going to invest in a program or saw an important need, you certainly have the opportunity to think about contingency asks for those things as well.
Yeah, so I think instead of moving around money, I think it's better just to have money available. I believe we're going to have a new council member joining us for Ward 3, so training is good. It's a huge bunch of information brought. So I would, I think it's important to go back to pre-COVID levels. So I would like to make a motion to amend just slightly, amend to bring back training to pre-COVID levels.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Dennis, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I didn't prepare that motion, but after looking at these numbers and a lot of feedback on many levels, other government agencies, people talking about how we as a council need to come together and have more cohesive ability to make policy, and so I feel training, and I mentioned this too, having gone to my first trainings really because COVID that year was needed to have a cut in budget. There wasn't ability to travel, but the amount of people you meet, and I know I imagine Mayor Norton will also chime in that this is true. The networking is instrumental for Rochester. Previous council members have said that the boards and commissions, we can fight for more funding for our city. We can partner with other mayors, and other legislators, and do really good things. Things that we can't even think of because right now, if we're not connecting to others, we're not partnering and networking and being able to think outside the box and new ideas for everything from our parks to events to, everything in our city. So I think giving council members the ability to learn and go to really essential events to find other, like I mentioned, is important. We don't have to spend the money. I mean, definitely, I feel that that's, per council members, there's some council members who haven't gone to any trainings for whatever reason, but having it there gives us the ability to do that. And I see in the staff, staff goes to training, and there's a lot of push for having informed staff. And I think those who are putting our names on the dotted line with our votes should also be informed and engaged. So that's I've mentioned a lot of this before. I have a lot of as an educator myself. Training is prevention. It prevents things that by learning and it helps promote a better future. So I think I would never want to cut training, and this dramatic cost has, I think, inhibited people from attending. And we should look for the future, and a growing city needs to have this available to the public. So that's why I would like your support.
So I have a 4-hour training on economic development with a network across Minnesota that's $20. I mean, I've done many trainings this year, and I've spent like $100. So not everything is, we have access to so many different trainings and opportunities to meet people that are really low cost and don't require huge amount of expense. So I'd be careful to say that we need massive increases in order to build our skills and opportunities to meet people. That's just not been my experience. So I've supported this increase to support staff and continuing to grow in their professional development. It says training and travel, but travel's part of it, and sometimes it's really focused just on having access to opportunities for professional development through training or coaching or whatever. So I'm certainly not supporting an increase above and beyond what we already asked Ms. Elms to increase of $100,000 across staff and council. Councilmember Campion, then Palmer.
Yeah, so I've been through the standard operating process of going to the League of National Cities and going to those conferences and talking to people. And it's not, to me, my personal take, I think that in terms of like understanding the national atmosphere around stuff facing cities, it's valuable. I think like the digital format would yield to me almost 95% of the value that I got out of those conferences. I don't think that the dysfunction that this particular council has faced, and I think overcome to some degree, was caused by a lack of training. And so, my honest opinion of this when I first saw it was to recommend that 100% of the 100,000 was applied to staff training and travel. Because I'm mostly concerned about the continuity of the people who do the day-to-day work of the city. But not having that option, I think that this is a reasonable middle ground. So I would be comfortable at the $100,000 level. I'd frankly probably be comfortable at less than that. But given that I've tried to stick with what I thought was a majority to get this through, I'm going to stick at the 100,000 level.
Councilmember Palmer.
Mr. Parrish, I just have a clarifying question on this. This increase isn't for the council, it's for all of the staff, isn't it?
We would apply it across the board proportionally, but the lion's share of that would go to the staff.
Well, we have 950 employees, so I would hope that that's
Yeah.
where it would go.
Right.
Okay, I just want to clarify. This is it's not for the city council, this is for the staff.
Well, a
No.
little
By percentage.
sliver is for council.
Well, it's sounding like it's $100,000 for the city council to go staffing, and I've gone to seminars and enjoy them, but I pick what I want to go to. So for 950 employees, that we cut as much as we did, I think that what we've been recommended and we've approved already is well within my comfort level. So.
We had an extra $100,000. Oh my goodness, we could fund pools and.
Just to clarify, what is the amount for council? in the budget? Because I mean, I see the number here that, you know, for 2022, it was a 3,400, but that's 1,200 of that is a mayor's budget. And for the 7, it's 22,000 for 7 council members.
I don't have the specific amount for the 100,000 increase that would go to the council. I don't have that available right now.
Okay. Well, so maybe it should be, maybe wait for later when we have those exact numbers. But I was going by the huge cut from the data that I had for, you know, 22,000 for a little over 22,000 for 7 council members is not a lot. And I'm emphasizing training because that's definitely, I think, is important. But the networking, like I mentioned, when I was able to go and learn about the job, what, you know, it was the first time ever where everything kind of comes together, where you kind of say, wow, this is a grander scale, how everything fits. And you talk to legislators like I did up in the cities who we were looking at partnering they asked if Mayo Clinic could come up and work on the World's Fair and there's, you know, the largest water park being built and things like that really would impact what we do here in Rochester with our water parks. That networking is invaluable when we decide, you know, if this is some project should be done here in Rochester. So I want to emphasize not just the training, but the connections you make. You can't do that on a Zoom call for $20. And then some people in this council have had experience, which is wonderful. They've served on boards and commissions. They've had advanced degrees and been able to do things. But to have true democracy and have people who come from all walks of life should have the ability in the future to go to trainings, just if they have not had, you know, the chance to learn about some of the things in their previous experiences. So I'm as an educator, I will vote for, like as a former educator, I think we should invest in our schools and we should invest in training because it makes a better world. And I disagree with Councilmember Campion. I think if people had spent more time together and got to know strengths and connections, and I think it would have helped a lot with the efficiency, although I guess I also say efficiency doesn't necessarily make for good government, but it would help with the ability to see lenses and negotiate and connect and make better policy.
Okay, Councilmember Dennis, you've been talking for your allotted time. Just this summer, I was on the League of Minnesota Cities Economic Development Council. I wasn't able to join in person, but those are also opportunities where you can sit on statewide committees and it isn't a paid experience. There's no charge. You can participate, network with 100 other cities in the state that are also participating in things that we care deeply about. So there's lots to do that's low cost. So even if we set the budget at this rate, there's still a lot of opportunities to do what you're hoping to. Councilmember Bransford.
All right, thank you. I love the passion, and I agree with the sentiment. I really do. One interesting thing that I learned at the League of Minnesota Cities up in Duluth, I went there in particular to take a class on grant writing, and it was really, really good. I learned a lot, but I also learned there's a heck of a lot of resources online and a lot of experience in this building about how to do it, and it would be so. In retrospect, it was great to go. It was a good experience, but I think there's a lot of really valuable experience here in this building I can lean on. Not to say that going was bad, but secondly, I would think at this point we should be tightening the belt, if anything. I think the direction should be to look to reduce the budget, not increase it. I feel like we have a responsibility to the people of this city to be as lean as possible, and there are places, like I said, that I feel like I could cut, but at this point this is the end of a very long process, and I think staff's done a great job, and I think we need to just kind of move forward here.
Councilmember Campion?
Yeah, just a quick question for staff. On the flip book version of the budget, it lists the 2023 budget recommendation as 22,756. Is that pre the 100K?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, just to be clear, the allocation strategy we will use is to sum the recommended travel amounts for all of the departments, and then prorate the 100,000 in each.
Yes.
Okay. To the mechanism for the council, I know I haven't spent a good portion of my travel allocation in the last couple of years. Is it that every council member has access to up to, I think I did the math here quick, $3,200 or so before we bring it back for discussion on reallocation of the dollar amount that's available?
I'm going to profess that I do not know the answer to that question. I don't know that it's tracked that tightly, but we can certainly evaluate that.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of the question from my standpoint. Like, the council members should pursue the education opportunities that are kind of available, that fit within their budget to the extent they see necessary. And then the excess should be returned to be reused by the city in other ways. I just want to make sure that, like, we're also equitable about how the actual dollars are allocated.
Yeah, because it's been more first come, first serve based on the conferences we're allowed to go to, I think.
Okay, that's it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and vote on the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion fails. So we're back to the original motion to approve the budget. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have something on the budget too. This is more for future budgets, obviously, because it's kind of late. But some of the things that really make people frustrated is the wasteful spending. And I know it's a little here, a little there, but like how we do contracts, I heard that every department does their own service contract that for things like copies and different things. And so if we can consolidate different contracts to get a better deal, if we can look at how we view property, there's a lot of dynamics that we could do better with spending in the future on utilizing our resources better. I use an example, and I'm just going to bring this is a little bit, but I know I've heard that the gas prices have caused a huge increase because of we use a lot of gas for vehicles in the city. But an example, just a quick example, was I was with my son at school, and the RPD officer who was there left a vehicle running from about 3:45 to about 7:15 in the parking lot, a resource officer. And so I called about that, and there was no policy in the police department for a no idling policy. So there's, for that example, where there is some use for having idle vehicles in the winter, or if there's, kind of you're a patrol officer, you have to be right away. But a lot of vehicles are left idling, and that's incredible amount. I heard, I can't quote the amount just with the gas increase, but little shaving off of wasteful spending here, a little there, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, and we can pay for stuff. So I think in the future, maybe doing what has been done in the past is that before our time, my time on council, is that departments would come up and tell us directly what their budget was, and they took responsibility to go through the budget and say what they could do to cut wasteful spending. And I know we have the new oversight agency committee, but it's not doing the same thing. I feel it's important to have in the future departments to be able to give a little presentation, a little thing directly to council, because then we can have a better feel of what we're voting for, instead of having just to rely and say, okay, I'm sure that the departments are doing the best they can, which I do believe that they are, but having that accountability and transparency to the public and to the policymakers, I think would really help, not just understanding, but also cutting wasteful spending in our city for future years. So those are my thoughts for future, is to bring back the department presentations so that we can maybe do better next year.
Okay, Councilmember Keene and Palmer.
I was going to call the question if everyone's had their opportunity.
I can't remember. Did Councilmember Palmer originally speak?
Yeah, but I would like to clarify.
Yeah, please.
With the police department, with their cars that are idling, They do that for the air conditioning, for the equipment that they have in their car, and the safety items that they have in the car. They have to keep a certain temperature. They shut them off if they can, but most of the time they have a very valuable computer equipment that has to stay cool or has to stay heated. So that's the reason they did it. That's the reason that we went and we invested in a underground heated parking area for them, so their cars could stay heated, so that they didn't sit outside and freeze and or overheat. So I just want to clarify that. That is out in the public.
Thank you. I haven't actually had a chance to speak, so, and neither has Councilmember Kirkpatrick. Do you want to say anything?
Move to second for discussion.
There's-
I'm very pleased with the discussion we're having, so I have no more comments. Thank you.
That was the last thing, but all right.
Well, the discussion's continuing.
Okay. So I just don't want to end the conversation about the budget we've been working on for 9 months or 6 months or whatever with multiple comments on wasteful spending. We are a city that uses incredibly lean budget planning and has been highly rated for over 50 years in how we manage our fiscal resources. We are incredibly fiscally responsible. So there are always opportunities to become more efficient and tighten things up. And Councilmember Dennis, I welcome you to continue working with departments and administration if you have ideas on how to do that, and we're happy to listen to them. But saying wasteful spending repeatedly and getting that message out into the public like we're just throwing money around is absolutely not the case. We are using our resources very smartly, and when we want to invest in community assets like pools, we have to spend money. And that affects levy. So we can't have it all the ways. We have to choose and prioritize how we use our resources in a really responsible way, and I think we're doing that. I would have been comfortable with a little bit more flexibility on the top end, just at this stage. So anyway, just didn't want to end on that note. So I'm happy to call the vote if we're otherwise ready. But Councilmember Kirkpatrick, any final thoughts? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, yep, let's go ahead and take a short break before we move on to our next item. We'll meet back here at 8:30.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back, everyone. I think we're having a few little technical difficulties, but bear with us. We are moving on to item, which was formerly F5, the Federal Small Community Air Service Development Grant Local Match, and I'll allow Ms. Dennis to introduce it, but we do have Mr. John Reed here from the airport to speak to any questions or help us through this item. Go ahead, Ms. Dennis.
Okay, so I wanted to pull it because, well, there has been calls about just basic fundamental why the city is funding the airport question. It is, I believe, was 0.9% of the budget that we just talked about. Let me get I was reading the updated stuff here that was, but the okay, I'm sorry, my information's right over here with the airport. So the fundamental concept of the airport, many cities do not give money to their airports. The airlines.
Ms. Dennis, I'm just not comfortable talking about the whole value of the airport for one specific consent agenda item that's very time relevant. If you'd like to talk about the value of the airport, that can be brought up at a future policy level discussion, but I don't expect Mr. Reed to come up here and talk about why the airport has value for our city.
I think that's a fair assessment.
I'd invite a motion.
I am not talking about the airport definitely has value for the city. I'm talking about giving airport money because just about 6 or 7 years ago, the airport was sending us, the city, a check for $1 million, $1.5 million. That changed. Now we're
we still get that check.
We're giving well, this money here. We're using it out of the contingency fund that could be used for other things. So I wanted to pull this to understand a little bit what the money's used for. If there are guarantees that the airline's going to be staying here, what are the chances of just some of the basics that that the money we're spending, $500,000. So I think it's merited being pulled for discussion and to have a better understanding.
Mr. Reed, would you step up and just speak a little bit about, specific to her question about what the value of this money in particular is to the future of the airport?
Absolutely. City Council President Carlson, Mayor Norton, and members of City Council, thanks for having me tonight. For those that don't know me, my name is John Reed, and more than happy to discuss anything as it relates to the airport at any time. This item in particular is in relationship to the local share of a small community air service development grant that we were very lucky to receive, and I believe at the last council meeting you did approve that $850,000 grant from the US DOT. What we're asking for today is the authority to negotiate up to $500,000 of local share to match the US DOT grant. That's what we're looking for at this point. A lot of nuances to this discussion. We could go at it for hours if you wanted to. I don't think we do. In its basic, and I can go straight to the question, by law, we are not allowed to use airport funds to fund this type of grant. So we have to use dollars from another location. And so that's why we have worked with the airport, has worked directly with staff to find another way to come together to fund this grant locally.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Yes, I think that kind of goes back to when we didn't have training, when we got elected to office, on how everything fits together. So that was thank you very much. I appreciate that. I know we talked on the phone. I appreciate that, Mr. Reed, too.
Thank you. Thanks for calling.
Thank you for the explanations on the phone. When you see it in the budget and you see people who question the reasoning, because a lot of the benefit goes to Mayo and Mayo patients, things that we have an airport here. Why isn't Mayo picking up more of the cost? Why, people are brainstorming ideas on how we can lessen the levy. And this was just an idea of just bringing it up to see, if other, I don't know, instead of using money that could go elsewhere, if this was a needed thing. But you explained it well with it. And I guess maybe for a future discussion on how much the city contributes would be good, but thank you very much for your.
Yeah, it sounds like additional explanation around how our airport is structured, because Mayo does carry a significant amount of responsibility for their
Mayo's had a very long history of supporting and participating in efforts to bring air service to our community, and we'll continue to move down that path as well.
A couple other questions, comments, Councilmember Keene?
Yeah, I want to just to keep the discussion, but I do want to move to authorize, make a motion to authorize the up to 500,000 local share to secure the new airline. Yeah, and just a comment again. I too share Councilmember Dennis's concern with how, the airport and what kind, what is the value to the average citizen versus the certain businesses. I think the finances that I've been able to study, we do, I think, a good job of making sure the costs flow to those who benefit mostly. I think it's a well-run operation. I do struggle a little bit with this coming out of contingency, but I am glad. I want to note that this is going into negotiation of up to 500K. We're not going to spend 500K and then find out, oh darn, we didn't get the route.
Yeah, no, again, authorization to enter in those discussions. There'll be performance metrics.
Yeah, good. And I actually do think there's value to the city to expand the routes leaving Rochester directly. I think it does provide value to the residents of the city.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. I just find this really interesting. So is this typical? I mean, just talking regular airports, I'm fine with this. I appreciate attempting to get another route, but kind of just thinking on a business angle here, why wouldn't the airline try and sell themselves to us? Why are we paying to get a route? Why wouldn't the airline come to us?
Yeah, very typical in today's business climate as it relates to a real constrictor on the number of aircraft that are out there, as well as very much a shortage of pilots. This has been pretty much the standard for the past decade and a half, where smaller communities that desire to have good access to the air transportation system, they will utilize dollars to backstop, almost in that partnership. There's not an airline flying out there today that has a route that's not earning money. So if they're going to take and bring a plane to Rochester, they're taking that aircraft and that pilot and those crews from another location to do that. So there's risk involved, very much.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's enlightening.
Average route is about $8 million just to fly the plane for that airline.
What do you mean by average route?
An average route, an annualized cost just for flying that aircraft, about $8 million.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. I would just invite the City Council and anyone listening to attend the Airport Commission meetings. We don't generally get people from the public to come to those, but they are open to the public, or to listen in on the tapes to find out a little bit more about how the airport runs and the kind of conversations and questions we ask at the commission. You might find it interesting.
All right. Any final discussion?
Just to chime in. So I'm a big fan of having options for travel. So I'm a fan of the airport. I just want to clarify that from previous comments here. I also know when we talked about, different things that might be in the future, people have been talking about, high-speed trains, the rail system, which of course is very expensive and there's a lot of complexity. But buses, you mentioned, take away some of the, buses going up to the cities. So I think we could look at it in a larger aspect too on how we can support the airport to have more ridership. We have a lot of different means of getting to places if we get up to the city. So I just want to say thank you for the work you've done to really try to make it feasible and wonderful option for people. And I just was questioning, just because it's my job, I believe, as a council member, to question where taxpayer money goes. So, but thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We will go ahead and vote. Mr. Reed, you can take your seat. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to what was item F10, and this was the lease agreement with Marvin Capital Ventures to lease city-owned property. Councilmember Palmer, you're up.
I had talked to staff today, and there's a lot of different questions on why we would want to do this. I'm totally support tiny houses, but this lot's 3,000 square feet. We just approved the 3,000 square foot lots are available to be built on. I don't know why we don't sell this piece of property. When I asked the questions, they were like, well, we're kind of a little light on the information. So I think one of the staff members are here to inform me, to tell me why this is a great, wonderful idea.
Thanks. Mr. Svenby, I think you're up.
Yep. Good evening, Council President Carlson, Council members, and Mayor Norton, Brent Svenby, Community Development. Actually, Marvin Capital Ventures actually approached the city way back in April, looking for a lot to do a research project on. Basically, they would like to construct a tiny home on a lot to look at how does changing light or air impacts affects the lives and the living health of individuals living in a home. So they are proposing to do an ADA bathroom, etc., in this house. But they approached us a long time ago looking at lots. A number of lots were presented to us. Finally, we came to the conclusion that we had this lot up on 5th Avenue Northwest, which is just over 3,000 square feet, which would be a perfect location for them for this pilot project to allow them to do their research. And then it'll also make the community aware of tiny homes. And then we can come back to the council and provide updates on how the research is going on the property and how the tiny home is working on a small lot in the city. They will be providing all of the development fees. So once they leave, that lot will be available for another tiny home once their lease period is up.
So I have a lot of different questions.
We're timing you, so.
Well, good.
Kelly raised our timer tonight.
First of all, is this a manufactured home? Is this a stick-built home? Does it have a foundation? The only thing I could see is that it had anchors which would make me inclined to believe that it's a manufactured home. What kind of home?
I learned out late this afternoon that they are now planning to build the home on site, and everything they do will have to be inspected and will have to meet building code regulations. So everything that they do will be up to standards in the Minnesota Building Code, and also the codes adopted by Rochester. So they are planning to connect with the neighbors to make them aware of what they're doing on the property, and their intentions are not to disrupt the neighborhood, but make it a living lab where they can, again, research how light changes and air impacts the lives of people living in homes.
Okay. And so now it's going to be built, stick built. It's going to have a foundation under it. It's going to have sewer and water on it. It's going to be there for 3 years, and then they're going to tear it down, and then we're going to sell a lot so we can build a single family dwelling. Would that be kind of the next steps in this that you're thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking is that when the lease comes due in 3 years, they are required right now to move the tiny house that they build on the property. Maybe at that point, the council would be willing to sell the property, and maybe they would be interested in purchasing a lot from the city. Otherwise, if not, they will remove the structure, but all of the city infrastructures and stuff will be stubbed out for that lot. Based on it.
Okay. Wouldn't we be better off to say that when you're done that we're going to own the house and we'll just sell the house? I mean, wouldn't that make more sense for the city of Rochester than to lease it to them for $1 a year and then turn around and say they want to buy the lot? Because it's going to be hard to find a open bidder on a piece of property with a tiny house on it. I still have 6 minutes.
Based on the way the lease is written currently, they are responsible to removing that house from that property once their lease is up.
Okay, so now I got the construction part of this. The second part of my question is you keep using the word research, and I'm quite familiar with tiny houses, and I'm not particularly sure what research they're trying to figure out that they're going to get. Can you explain to me what answers or questions, or how are they going to report back to us that, geez, living in a tiny house is just like living in a regular house?
Well, currently Delos does operate in the Bio Business Center. They've been there for a number of years doing research on the built environment, how changing in light and air affects living. So they're just taking that research or that study that they're doing in Bio Business Center, and they want to research how changes in light and air impacts the living environment in someone living in a tiny house.
Okay.
Based on plans I've seen for the structure, they have like one room set aside for just different types of air intakes, I believe it is. And then they would also look at the effects of different types of shading on windows and how that affects the light and how that affects your living environment based on changes in light coming into a house.
So if they're building to the building code, they're going to be under the second toughest energy code in the United States, in the state of Minnesota, and they're going to have some kind of heating appliance in there, and they're going to have some kind of ventilation in there. So are you telling me that they're going to exchange and put different types of in these tiny houses?
I'm not sure quite how they do their operations, Mr. Palmer, but they are looking at impacts of how light changes and how air changes the living environment inside of a house. All through science.
You're more than halfway through your time.
Hang on, thank you, I appreciate that. I mean, the University of Minnesota cold climate people have done a lot of research on ventilation in the state of Minnesota. They've done a lot of research on a lot of things. I would prefer to see us not do this and then go out and sell this lot and let somebody develop on a small lot, 3,000 square feet in the city central, and see what we get for interest on that. And if this company decides that's what they want to do, let them do this. Is this company a nonprofit?
No, they are part of Well Living Lab. It's partially funded in partnership with the Mayo Clinic and a number of doctors that lead human-centered living research. So I think it's a lot of the same folks that are living or that are doing research in Bio Business Center.
Well, I'll make a motion to table this.
Bunch of other questions, but the motion has precedence, so. Is there a second?
Discussion.
Okay.
I want to discuss this a little bit more.
To discuss that motion.
Well,
It's too late. And actually, the only
All
germane
right.
things are to talk about the table.
So, Councilmember Councilmember Palmer, why would you like to table?
You've already talked 5 minutes.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes left.
Don't encourage him.
Maximum. But then you can't say
I
anything.
will talk as fast as I can.
All right, we're getting goofy.
Okay, real simple, all the questions, I'm not getting the answers to it. We've got Mayo Clinic doctors involved. I don't have a clue what we're trying to do. I've got a lot in Rochester that I could sell, 3,000 square foot. Somebody could build a house. I'm giving this to somebody for 3 years to do some research that I have no clue. The answers are out there already. We don't need to reinvent the wheel in this. That's the reason I'm tabling it. If they want to come back and say, hey, these are the answers to your questions, Mr. Palmer, I'd be more than happy to be and have my answers answered. So enough said on my part.
Okay, Councilmember Kirkpatrick, discussion on tabling?
No, I want to talk about the other questions I had before you made your motion.
Then we should dispense.
Hog and time.
Then let's dispense with the table.
All right.
Move to dispense with the table.
No, we
That would
don't
be a
need the
vote.
motion. All right.
That would be a vote.
Let's go ahead and vote.
Yeah,
All in favor
motion.
of the motion to table, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay.
Hey,
Motion fails. All right, back to the original motion, Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
I don't. I don't think anyone made the original motion. I was going to make the original motion.
Yes.
Oh, we never even had the original motion.
Authorize execution of a 3-year lease agreement with Marvin Capital and for the property at 302 Fifth Avenue Northwest.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen.
I actually think Councilmember Palmer has some good questions about what's really going on here, but I come at this at a very different perspective. I don't think of this as maximizing our value on a 3,000 foot lot. I think of this as an experiment in affordable living of trying to say, can we start doing these tiny houses and what are the implications of it? And I expect what's going to happen with this is there's going to be some sort of publicity that this works well or this doesn't work well. And I think the good outcome is they come back trying to buy the property because people are wanting to buy the house. I don't know if that's going to happen. Might not happen at all. That's the nature of research. So that's why I want to support this tonight.
Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. So I'm kind of with both of you guys. If this is a research project, well, I guess I'd kind of like to know what the hypothesis is, first of all. I mean, that's a big one right there. But secondly, what are you comparing it to? Are you going to go get data from Doc Fleming's house on East Center Street where Riverwalk was put up and the sun never goes in their house after, 2 p.m. on a winter day? I mean, how has that building next to them affected their livelihood and their well living? What are we comparing this to?
Councilmember Campion.
I mean, I would just offer that we may be wandering a little bit far afield here. I don't believe they're approaching us to validate their research or to offer constructive criticism about what they're researching. They're approaching us for what looks like relatively market rate lease agreement on a piece of property. And so while I understand the intrigue, I'm sure they're excited about all your questions because they're trying to do marketing with this, I'm guessing. I don't know that it's necessarily pertinent to the fact of whether or not we should get in this, unless you think that the research itself will cause some sort of external factor that we should consider when we're deciding to lease to. But ultimately, yeah, I come at this to be like, if they have a good use of it, they're going to put in some improvements on the property, and in the end, we retain ownership. I think it's a relatively strong position for us in the future, so I'm all aboard.
Thanks. Councilmember Bransford.
Yeah, this is a strange one. So the scientist in me definitely goes, what? And then I hear Mr. Campion and I go, oh, okay. Is this an income property?
For us now?
Yes.
No, because it's not paying property taxes because it's not developed and we own it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct? I think that's correct.
But in the future, we'll sell it. So we're leasing this
Ostensibly.
ostensibly. So then that will be an income stream, yes? No.
I think it's like $1 lease.
Not much.
It's one of those deals.
But they're making improvements to the property, so there's
Yeah.
Paying fees.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Discussion? Go ahead.
This is a stretch, admittedly. But you know what? They're putting up one house. Why doesn't Mayo turn the hotel on West Center Street into micro units for the homeless? Why don't we have some physicians do a study on how to actually do some affordable housing for folks in our community? There you
That's
go.
a good
I'm done.
question to talk to Mayo about. All right,
She knew what she was doing.
go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Say nay.
I abstain.
Okay.
Abstain.
Carries 5-0-2. Right. Moving on to item F11 or 11, the purchase agreement with Gillig or GILLIG LLC for heavy duty transit buses. Councilmember Dennis, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So this was something that caught my eye because many of you have walked through that new shiny electric bus that we have showcasing with the city, and people are all excited that the city's going electric. And so I see people. I had 2 calls about this from constituents too, wondering about. It's very very complex, the amount of pages with the Duluth. Oh my gosh! Well, the information that we had to read to understand the Duluth Transit Authority's heavy-duty buses. So just to process it a little bit more, and just to give a sense of trust to, like why are we saying we're going electric, but now we're spending an incredible amount of money. This 13 million on 23 heavy-duty transit buses. And so I wanted to see if there was other options that we could do to lessen the amount, or to just see other options to promote environmental sustainability that we are saying we're doing with going electric. So I did get some feedback when I talked to people and got some emails, so I appreciate that. But I feel it would be good to discuss if just so that people can see why the city is doing this route with this amount of money.
We have Ms. Zhang here. Just to be clear, Councilmember Dennis, is there a specific set of questions you'd like her to respond to, or just explain the purchase agreement, or what?
Well, yeah, a little bit of the purchase agreement, but just overall, I know there was some thoughts about maybe what we could do. Can we? It was brought to me by someone else. Electric replacement. Can we lobby the state? Those are great ideas. So that we don't go backwards and spend an incredible amount. Although I hear it's not out of the levy, but still an incredible amount on fuel-based, environmentally polluting diesel buses. So just options that we could do besides go this route.
Ms. Zhang, go ahead.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, I'm Ia Xiang. I'm Transit and Parking Systems Manager. President Carlson, Mayor Norton, council members. That's a lot of information, so I'm not quite sure where to start. But the 23 buses that is in this contract is an accumulation of buses that were not replaced, going way back to 2018. As noted, there is no system or no funding in place right now to fund electric. So we'd have to competitively go out for the federal grants and get awarded for it. Otherwise, we'd have to make up that difference. So the total amount for these 23 buses is about 13.5 million. Of roughly is about 80% is state and federal, and then 20% is local. So anything above and beyond that, the city would have to make up that difference. And the difference of that would be roughly about 7 million. And that's also not including like the chargers that we would have to implement, the infrastructure, the maintenance. So we're not prepared for a fleet of like 23 at this time. We currently have 2 that we were awarded, which we then installed chargers, and we have another 2 that's coming. So the transition to all electric, that plan hasn't been laid out yet. And that is part of our transit development plan, is to do that study and see how we can do that fiscally and infrastructurally, how we can support that. So as far as like funding, we don't have the funding for it. And it would set us back about 2 to 3 years in regards to going back and doing an electric purchase. We'd have to go out for procurement, and then right now buses are, depends on where you're going to purchase it from and where you're in the queue. It could take another year or 2 years for it to be delivered. So the contract that we have with Duluth, we're in a joint procurement, which earlier this year we came to the council for approval to enter into this joint procurement with Duluth, along with other transit agencies in Minnesota, to do diesel buses and compressed natural gas. We obviously are going for the diesel buses. And so once we got that approved, we've now made progress and got closer to that procurement. So at this point in time, we've negotiated the price. Gillig is the company that we're going with. And we are in queue for them, so that if we do, once we get this approved, the purchase or the delivery of this would be late next year, about half of it, and then the other half would be in 2024. If we don't approve this, we'd be out another 2-3 years before we get delivery of buses. And once again, this is an accumulation of buses that we haven't been able to order back in 2018 through various delays in contract procurement, and then of course the pandemic and so on and so forth. So that's why there's so many at this point in time. Otherwise, we would have been ordering about 8 or 9 every other year.
So the question, how long do these diesel buses, we get 23 more fuel diesel running buses. It would be very wasteful just to get rid of them. And, how long would each of these brand new buses last the city?
Yeah, the useful life of these buses is about 12 to 15 years. So by the time that we purchase these, our fleet is about 68 buses. We do have a continuous rotation of replacement buses. We're hoping that by the time we get to the next set of buses that needs to be replaced, we'd have our transition plan in place and how we can do that, converting it over. And then also with the state and federal funding, they're also looking at how they can support that transition from diesel to electric.
I guess I don't feel I don't feel good about putting money back. I mean, but I have to trust the experts. If you guys say that we need buses, we want safe buses, and we don't have infrastructure to have electric right now. I guess our hands are tied, but I think this should be on the radar that we don't want to. Maybe this be the last time we buy diesel buses. This be the last order. It's already put into rolling here, but this looks very, I don't know, just doesn't look consistent with our values of moving forward with renewable resources. So those are my thoughts. And if anyone else had questions.
Are there other questions? Otherwise, let's get a motion for discussion.
Move approval.
Second.
Councilmember Campion.
I have a question for Mahjong too. So just historically looking at the prior legislative action section, we started this process with an intent to convert the transit fleet over time. And would you say that this step kind of continues the plan to transition our bus fleet over time?
I say that it definitely is a replacement of buses that's needed. Once again, this is roughly a little less than half of the buses. So the advancement in electric also is always improving. And by the time that we get our plan in place, these electric buses will hopefully have been improved. I mean, even Duluth was one of the first ones in our area to have purchased, and they've learned quite a bit. They've had it for 4 years. And so by the time we order, if we were to order electric buses, we're hoping that that would have even been improved even more based on our like winter months and how it operates here. So we're looking for that. Also, the chargers are ever changing in regards to, do we do on-route charging? Do we, how we store the buses? Also keep in mind that the Link will also be purchasing 11 electric buses. And so those will be coming in like 2 or 3 years.
So I don't intend to slow us down. I think Councilmember, let me not project. My concern is probably addressed as part of the review we did back in December of the capital improvement plan. My understanding is that this is generally in keeping with the plan we approved for capital improvement. And I know that the transition is kind of one of these constant waits against, the longer you wait, the better the electric technology you're going to get is, and the longer you wait, the more you've polluted and the more mess you have to pick up. So I think it's like a balance, like pretty much everything we do associated with the environmental efforts we make. And so I'm happy to support kind of this as a reasonable interim step, knowing that the intent of the city and most bus systems is to get over to electric. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. Mayor Norton.
Thank you. I wouldn't necessarily have talked about this, but since it's on the table, I will just share my concern about what we're doing. Partly because 5 years ago I served on the Energy Commission. I sat down in the office of the Department of Transportation and they said, the next purchases will start buying electric. And that was over 5 years ago. So it's going very, very slowly. And I'm excited about the electric buses we have. So that's something. I'm thrilled to hear that there will be 11 electric Link buses. I think that's a step in the right direction. I am concerned with the number of buses that we're purchasing right now that are not electric. So I guess my question to Ms. Young would be, if the state, which has just made a huge commitment to renewables and clean energy just this last week, and or if the federal government makes, with all their infrastructure funds, funding available for electric buses, could we continue to seek those and perhaps make a change midway with Gillig, knowing we just toured some of their electric buses this past year, which were down here for a visit. So is it possible to do that rather than to commit to this many right now, all non-electric? So is there a way to say yes to the non-electric now and the second half potentially electric if we could find financial support?
Yes, if I can comment on that. Just last week, I was talking to the state in regards to this, and they are supportive. They do obviously have to go through some steps on how they can make that happen, and they are very committed to helping us. When that will happen, I mean, it's to be seen, but definitely we are continuously talking about it.
So if I can just clarify, we're buying a large number of buses. By approving this today, are you saying that they will all guaranteed be non-electric, or is there a way to approve the first half of the purchase and try to negotiate the second half electric if money becomes available from a federal or state source? That's what I'm trying to get at.
You're leading the witness.
Yeah, leading the witness. Well, I'm trying to ask a question and it didn't get answered, so I'm trying again.
Okay. I think I understand your question. So the 23 that we are putting here right now, it is pretty set. They are diesel. The state will not put any additional funding to turn it into electric. So the funding approval, if we do not proceed with this, then we have to talk to the state and figure out what happens with these buses. So The other half, which I thought you were talking about, is the other ones that we do have that we are not replacing at this point in time because of its replacement schedule. I would say that in the future, as we get these, the current buses that are not being replaced, as they become ready to be replaced, is when we would be talking to the state on how they can fund it as an electric.
So thank you for that, and I will just say, this is disappointing and not what the department had been heading to 5 years ago. We have taken a step backwards, as has been pointed out, and I understand there are reasons for that. Financial sounds like part of them, and supply chain is another issue. So certainly appreciate that answer and hope we can do better in the future.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of factors out of our control, and it's not ideal. It's pitting a couple of our different city values against each other, unfortunately. Not what I would love to see for right now, but given where we are with the production and availability and cost of these buses, I guess this is where we have to be. So, Councilmember Keene, over to you.
Yeah, again, I had the same sort of concerns looking at the large dollar amounts, but right in the narrative was this idea that, you know, we can either do this or we can continue to run old buses and take those risks. We can continue to do this, or we can come up with large sums of our own money to get the electric buses. We could go and lobby the state and try to get that changed, but as we do that, we'll continue to run old buses. So those are the choices in front of us. The other, more creative one is we don't need to do this through the Duluth Agreement. We can do it another way. But now I find that our council is sitting here just second guessing what our staff is working on, and I find it annoying.
Yeah. Yes.
So I want to support this today. I worked on this a little bit just to see if we had done things. I think we have. We would always like to see things moving faster, but I actually like the golden lining here is that the longer we wait on some of these purchases, the better the technology will get to. Thank you.
And more affordable, hopefully. All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion carries with Councilmember Kirkpatrick voting nay. And finally,
Who made the motion on that?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's the only reason I got to talk.
Campion and Keene, because Campion had the floor. Yeah.
The law firm.
All right, so we are on to item F15.
I'm out of time.
You can't keep talking, bro.
I guess I'm done for the night. Who wants to take over?
F15.
All right, F15, which is the Center Street ramp restoration, and Councilmember Dennis, back to you.
Okay, well, I just want to say it's a huge, okay, have it all printed out here. This gigantic document, which I do say is a lot of, there's a lot of site maps and things in it. But this was all sent to council after 5 p.m. Today when we were in the study session. So it is difficult for council, and I've been open with neurodivergencies too. It's difficult to process a lot of information within an hour, which I believe is important to also eat and check on kids and do other things. So, so I have skimmed through these incredible amount of documents, and I imagine most of my colleagues, if they have read every little bit, is quite amazing. But I just wanted the city to just go through it so that the public has this information and why it was changed, and yeah, so we have a very informed vote on this F15. It was an amendment at the last minute, so I was hoping staff could just go through this so that we can vote informed. Thank you.
Our Public Works Director, Wendy Turry, is available to respond. Do you have the information you need to be able to speak?
Yeah, Council President, I might ask Michael just to walk through the pieces, and then if we have questions about what it all is, we'll answer at that point.
Thank you, Your Honors. Yes, appreciate the question, and yes, of course, we try our best to avoid these situations where there's last-minute materials being provided to the public and to council. This was one of those situations that was really just unavoidable, and frankly, it was staff working through the weekend to try to hammer out just some challenging logistics here. This, of course, relates to a ramp repair project that found some additional challenges as they dug into that work. This scene, as you know, where this ramp is a little extra complicated to the extent that the ramp intrudes on some spaces of private property owners. So when that happens, we work through voluntary agreements, ideally, for us to get access and do the repair work that we need to do. In this case, this particular repair project requires extensive shoring. This ramp involves our air rights over someone else's property. So in order to set up that shoring, we needed to work through and get agreement by that property owner. In this case, as referenced in the agreement. Also part of the ramp repair actually intrudes into a building, requires some shoring in that building. So sorry for the extensive detail, but that was the situation that just presented a bit of a tough nut to crack. We needed to work through and reach a voluntary agreement with an ownership group in kind of a complicated setting. So again, went through the weekend into literally today to reach that agreement. I would just add that at the end of the day, the agreement itself is relatively simple. Just gives us permission to be in those spaces that owns and includes an indemnification clause. So if we were to cause any damage while we're on their property, we'll take care of that. Overall, also this project itself is expected to last 3 months maximum, ideally, hopefully less than that. And then the parties can move on. So again, the first 2 pages of what was sent out today is really that construction easement agreement, and as Councilmember Dennis referenced, the other extensive materials are really the underlying plans related to the ramp repair. Hopefully that answers questions by Councilmember Dennis, and happy to answer others that anyone else may have.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I've read the first 2 pages, so I feel comfortable with it, and I understand. I mean, I've at times brought up like CIAs or things at the last minute too, so I understand sometimes time-sensitive things need to be done. Not giving a lot of notice, but I know people who are very active in looking at information on want to have this. To dissect prior to the meeting as well in our world. But I'm not an attorney, and but what I see, it's worded and done well. So I have to trust the experts at
Would you like me to make a motion to approve?
What's the specific motion that the city attorney is looking for?
I got it.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to make a motion to approve as presented with the addition of the temporary construction easement added to the packet this evening in support of F.15.
Second, Campion.
Okay, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah. Again, I appreciate that some of these are more complicated. I know that when you're dealing with an ownership group that is a group as opposed to an individual, it makes it more complicated. I've seen good information that this restoration is a good business decision for the city. This is a well-performing part of our parking enterprise, and I'm glad to see the work going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Campion.
Yeah, I've said it a number of times. There is a skill set that I bring to this job, and it is not reading 60 pages of contractual language between our city and an applicant. And I've made the city attorney aware that I hold him responsible when things go wrong. And my job is to make sure that we have the best people hired. And I think we've got an excellent one. So if he says the contract is ready to go, then I'm confident the contract is ready to go. And I think that in this particular case, walking it on was really about the very integral nature of the air rights to the property owning rights underneath. I heard only one thing the city attorney said that I would disagree with, and it was that our ramp intrudes on their property, and it doesn't, because we own the air rights, and it intrudes on our air rights. And I want to be really clear on the record for that. So that's all I had to say.
Councilmember Palmer.
And I'd just like to thank the staff that worked hard all weekend long on this, and the other party for cooperating and working together and coming to an agreement that is best for the city of Rochester. Thank you.
Madam President, if I could just address one other item, and I do agree with Councilmember Campion's observation there. I would just add the other timing element here, the challenge, and the reason that we walked it on is that we have this contractor literally on the ground, ready to move forward, and frankly, any delay here in moving forward with the shoring, including inside the building, would have cost the city greater financial output for this repair.
Yes, thank you for that. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, I think we have one first reading of an ordinance. Go ahead, Mr. Spindler-Craig.
Madam President, there is one first reading, and it's a little bit long. J1, an ordinance amending Section 2-14-2 of Chapter 2-14 of Title II of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to general functions and amending Clause 5 of Paragraph A of Section 9-7-3 of Chapter 9-7 of Title 9 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to general provisions. An ordinance creating Sections 9-2-1.1, 9-2-7.5, 9-2-21, 9-2-22, 9-2-23, creating Clause 4 of Paragraph A of Section 9-2-5, creating Paragraphs C and D of Section 9-2-7, amending Sections 9-2-8, 9-2-10, and Paragraph B of Section 9-2-1 of Chapter 9-2 of Title 9 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to public right-of-way management. An ordinance amending the title of Chapter 9-5 and amending Sections 9-5-1, 9-5-3, 9-5-4, 9-5-6, 9-5-7, and 9-5-8 of Chapter 9-5 of Title 9 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to sidewalk, driveway, and curb and gutter construction and repair. An ordinance amending the title of Chapter 9-18 and amending Sections 9-18-1, 9-18-4, and Paragraph A of Section 9-18-2 of Title 9 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to concrete sidewalks, driveways, curbs, and gutters.
Thank you for that. We don't have any second ordinance second readings, no tabled items. Is there any other business tonight?
Real quick.
Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you. I just have to chime in. I've been in contact with a lot of families in Rochester on the phone many hours. And I just want to amplify that, people are struggling, and September is Suicide Awareness Month. And there's all these wonderful different things you can call 211 to get resources if you need with the county, or 988 if you have someone struggling. I've worked this weekend with the hospice Mayo grief camp with children who've gone through trauma and have experienced people in Rochester who also are struggling. And it's a real thing. So please have those numbers available, 211 and 988, please. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Bransford second.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
And the under, too.
Hey, Kim.
Recording stopped.
The public hearing closed.